Now, live from the Patriot Detroit Radio Complex, this is the John McCulloch Show.
What I found out, Aaron, is that about 8 hours ago, Adam Schiff and I looked Dan Coates in the eyes and we assured him that there would be no selective leaking of his testimony to us. And I'll be damned if 8 hours later, there aren't 3 different leaks with what he told us. So if anyone is questioning why congressional investigations aren't taken seriously and are viewed as political exercises, you need to look no further than the fact that we looked one of our intelligence officials in the eyes and promised him there would be no selective leaking. And here I am being asked about it, not even 8 hours later.
Now, here's John.
And welcome into the Monday edition of the McCulloch Show here on FM 101.5 and AM 1400, The Patriot. Glad you could join us for the fastest hour in local Detroit talk radio, where your host continues serving his life sentence in reality. Be aware, here all lives matter. There is no political correctness. There are no safe zones for the snowflakes, and you will be triggered if you are triggerable. Lots going on in the world right now, including the continued confusion in Las Vegas over what happened, and the continued confusion I have as to why the Muslim Brotherhood still has access to the White House in some areas. Chris Galbatz is an undercover guy. Actually, right now he goes around the country talking about what he found out during an undercover operation of 6 months into the organization CARE in Washington, D.C. He came out with thousands and thousands of pages of written information and hours of covertly acquired recorded information. And he's going to be speaking here in the greater Detroit area tomorrow night. We're going to be giving out that information in just a couple of minutes. But I want to welcome to the show Chris Galbatz. Am I pronouncing that right, Chris?
You are, and thank you for having me on, John. Greatly appreciate it.
Well, I greatly appreciate your joining us. If we could just cut to the chase here, and I'm going to ask you a question. I don't even know if you can answer it. Out of all these hours of tape, all of these pieces of paper that you managed to get out of Washington's CARE organization, what's the most damning thing you saw?
Yeah. So some of this, because we are in a lawsuit, I may not be able to go into everything. It's been an 8-year trial to date. So, but some of the things that should concern people is one of the executives from Hamas doing business as CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. One of the executives bragging about the fact that he can get Saudi Arabia to write him a $500,000 check. This is a foreign hostile nation, Saudi, even though we classify them as allies, that is funding a known jihadi group here in the United States, CARE. And there's obviously hundreds and hundreds of hours of covert audio and video footage in that project. But to me, the fact that CARE says that they're a U.S. civil rights organization, and yet they have to get Saudi Arabia to cut them checks, says everything I need to know.
The testimony that you have given in front of Congress, how was it received?
It was received well. Unfortunately, like what we see in Congress, which is why, in large part, I think President Trump was elected, is they're not actually doing anything with the information that they have. There is enough evidence today, right now, to indict the major Muslim Brotherhood organizations here in America. And there has never been a lack of evidence to indict these groups and individuals. It's always been a lack of will throughout our Justice Department. And we are hoping and have hoped that that attitude would change with President Trump in the office. But to this point, on this particular issue, we haven't seen much movement at all.
Now, it seems that when you bring up CARE or other organizations and you talk about them the way you do, you say Hamas or CARE, you say they're interchangeable. you come under fire, and you come under criticism, and some of it's pretty severe criticism, and then some of it involves lawsuits. Why does Islam and CARE and other organizations have this seeming power in the United States to silence criticism?
You know, it's interesting that you put it that way. The Muslim Brotherhood has a document called the Explanatory Memorandum, which outlines how they believe that they're going to take over America and convert it into an Islamic state under Sharia. And part of their strategy is called civilization jihad, sabotaging America from within by our own hands. And CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood generally know that if they can keep leadership, if they can keep citizens, if they can keep law enforcement in this country from even speaking about the threat, then they know necessarily that we can never defeat the global Islamic movement. And that is why, for them, they spend an inordinate amount of time working to make sure that people never hear the truth about Islam, because they know they can continue to win this war. And just to give you a snapshot picture, we're 16 years after 9/11, and we have still, to this day, yet to identify who we're fighting or why they're fighting us in this Islamic movement. And CARE understands that if they can continue at the federal level, the state, and the local level to keep people from speaking about this threat, they know that's the war for them. As long as they can keep people on their heels and keep people intimidated from speaking about Islam, jihad, or Sharia, then necessarily we will at some point lose this war. And we're seeing this unfold in Europe right now, where people are being arrested and being prosecuted for just speaking truthfully about Islam. And that is their goal here in the United States.
And they seem to be succeeding to some degree. I have a personal question for you, Chris. A friend of mine, a great journalist from Detroit by the name of Chauncey Bailey, was gunned down in the streets of L.A. For writing about a certain Muslim bakery that was acting as a front for terrorist organizations, and he was assassinated by a new member of their organization, and subsequently the guy was arrested. I don't know if it's been adjudicated yet or not, but I mean, he was just walking down the street, didn't have a guard with him or anything, and they shot him in the back. How do you provide for your safety? You can't be on their list of most liked guys because you speak truth to it, and you do so all over the country. Do you fear for your safety?
You know, we certainly take adequate precautions. At the end of the day, John, it's by the grace of God that we're able to do what we're doing. And like you said, these people certainly don't like me. The fact that I went undercover, they don't like our organization, understanding the threat, because we speak truthfully and factually about Islam. And so it is my only explanation that I can rationally give as to why we're able to do this is simply through the grace of God. We feel like as an organization that we are called to speak truthfully, boldly, and in love about this threat. And short of leaving this earth, there really isn't anything that's going to stop us from doing that until we win this war.
We hear constantly, and I know I do business with Muslims here in the area, and we hear constantly that we're painting a picture here that is inaccurate of the Muslim religion, and that it's a religion of peace, and that there are moderate Muslims who are interested in reform, and blah blah blah. You've heard it all, I'm sure. What do we do about the moderate Muslims who seem to be just that? Do you understand where my confusion comes with that? Because they walk around, they dress nicely, they converse nicely, they don't kill people, they don't they don't give inflammatory speeches. We don't know what goes on in the mosques, obviously, but they appear to be normal people. Is that a big problem in the perception that Americans have of what the threat is?
Yeah, there's a couple of factors that play into that. First off, from our perspective as an organization, as far as what we do with those Muslims that don't adhere to Sharia, my argument would be nothing. Our analysis of this threat starts with who the enemy says they are and why they're fighting. And 100% of our enemy in this war, whether it's the Taliban, Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State, the Muslim Brotherhood, all of these groups tell us consistently why they're fighting. They say they're Muslims waging jihad to establish an Islamic State under Sharia. That's what they're telling us. Our organization, understanding the threat, helps law enforcement, leadership, legislators, and citizens to understand the threat so that they understand that we're talking about the ideology of Sharia, that there's no Islam without Sharia, that there's no Sharia without Islam, and that this is the driving, motivating factor for all these jihadi groups. Whether or not a person that self-identifies as a Muslim actually wants to live under Sharia doesn't change the ideology and the doctrine that's driving Sharia. And so for those out there, Muslims that say they're Muslim, but they don't adhere to Sharia, they don't want any part of it, our organization isn't focused on that. What we're focused on is the people that actually do want Sharia, that actually are fighting for it. And those are the ones that we are trying to point out and call out. At the end of the day, if we can defeat the ideology, then those that say they're Muslim, but they're not adhering to the ideology, if we can defeat this ideology, then they can just go off and create a new ideology. But what we're talking about right now is Islam as it is, and not getting caught up in this hopeful, wishful thinking that somehow Christian and Jewish organizations can step in and reform a 1,400-year-old system. I'm not willing to bet the future of my family and this nation on the hope that Christian and Jewish organizations can reform Islam, because primarily the Muslim reform movement right now is comprised of well-meaning and wishful thinking Christians and Jews, with a few Muslims sprinkled in.
Our guest is Chris Gaubetz. He is he is Vice President of Understanding the Threat. That's his organization. We'll have a link to that on our Facebook page. He is speaking tomorrow night, starting at 7 p.m. at the Southeast Michigan Tea Party meeting at Dave & Buster's in Utica. All are invited. That's tomorrow night at October 24th, Tuesday at 7 p.m. at Dave & Buster's in Utica. All are invited. You don't have to call. You can just show up and meet this brave man who is speaking out. Now, as a Republican, Chris, I have a problem in that it's the half of the Republican Party that represents me against the Democrats, the communists, the socialists, and the media. And it's a pretty tough combination. In this, I see the opposition as being well-meaning people on the left who have embraced much of what is going on in this country. They're trying to open the borders, and they're saying we're Islamophobic if we try to control import or immigration from certain countries. But where's the media coming down on all this? Where is their sense of responsibility in at least printing in some mainstream way some of what is going on and that is known to be going on in this country, especially as it regards this supposedly respectable organization, CARE?
Yeah, when it comes to the media has been complicit in their whitewashing and cover up for Islamic jihad. I mean, the bottom line is, with very few exceptions, investigative journalism is dead. With some exceptions, there are good journalists out there that are good people that are putting out good, solid work based on facts and evidence. But many, I would say the majority of journalists in this country are either too lazy to actually go out and do the vetting on these stories and the investigative side of these stories to show a fair and true light about what the Muslim Brotherhood wants to achieve in this country, about jihad groups, why they're operating, what's the doctrine that's driving them, and about Islam in general. Journalists are either not taking the time to learn this issue, or they've done what our leadership has done on Capitol Hill, which is find an Islamic advisor on issues and events that relate to Islam. They're turning to an Islamic advisor, and more often than not, that Islamic advisor here in the United States is a Muslim Brotherhood member, which is exactly what has happened throughout the national security apparatus and throughout Capitol Hill. You've got senators, representatives, heads of agencies, the assistant directors to agencies throughout the security apparatus that have outsourced America's national security to an Islamic advisor. And this has just been a catastrophically failed approach to this issue. So whether it's media, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's law enforcement, all of them have been doing this. And it shows because we are 16 years after 9/11, and we're treating every incident that comes up that's a jihad attack as though it's a separate incident and not part of a global war. The problem with that viewpoint is our enemy, the global Islamic movement, sees this as a worldwide global movement, and they see it as total warfare, not just shooting things and blowing things up, but intelligence gathering, counterintelligence, espionage, treason, sedition, media manipulation and propaganda, political influence operations, information operations. They're working on so many different lines of operation, and our national security apparatus has only been focused on the guys that are pulling triggers and blowing things up, and that's where we're losing the sport.
Our guest is Chris Galbutz. He is the Vice President of UTT, Understanding the Threat. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the few days that Chris Galbutz and associates spent in Las Vegas following the shootings there and what was found in Las Vegas. And then I have a few more questions for Chris, and then we'll wrap this up. But again, Chris, I want to thank you for being with us, and I want to thank you all for listening to FM 101.5 and AM 1400, The Patriot. One person that we know is not listening to the program tonight is Dr. James Gregg, founder and president of Gregg Chiropractic Life Centers. And he's not listening because he's doing a doctor's report right now in Troy, where he's telling people about chiropractic. He does this every Monday in Troy and every Wednesday in Garden City. And the format is simple. People who doubt chiropractic, people who are curious about chiropractic, people who are in pain and haven't tried it, go to the doctor's report at 6 o'clock at his office, and he talks to you about chiropractic. And then after he has done a very thorough explanation, and it doesn't take a long time to do, the philosophy is deceptively simple and yet pretty complicated when you get down to it. But in any case, he gets it done soon, or gets it done quickly. Then he takes questions from the audience. And you can ask anything you want. Questions that you think might embarrass him, they won't. He wants you to ask the tough questions. He wants to make sure that your pain, that you get the information yourself from the horse's mouth. Now, there's an easy way to get into the doctor's report. You can just show up, or it's nice to call so they know how many tea and crumpets to fix or whatever it is that they do. The number for both offices, Garden City and Troy, the same, 734-525-8422. I strongly urge you to go, especially if you're in a lot of pain and nobody is able to tell you what it's about or take care of it for you unless they're using drugs. 734-525-8422. And please mention the John McCulloch Show when you call Dr. Gregg.
Now, on-time traffic and weather on the Patriot.
You'll find 75 southbound between Springwells and North Line is closed due to road construction. Traffic and detour 94 westbound at 275 southbound to 75. You'll find on 696 eastbound between Woodward and 75, road construction has the left lane closed. Traffic is stop and go from the Lodge in this area. Plan on heavy delays. You'll find on 94 eastbound at Little Mac, an accident blocks the right lane there, backing things up a little ways. You'll find slow traffic on 75 northbound between 375 and 14 Mile. You'll find an accident reported on the entrance ramp of 94 eastbound to 96, backing things up in that area. You'll find slowdowns on the Lodge northbound at Telegraph. An accident blocks the right shoulder there. And you'll find an accident blocking the right shoulder of Southfield Freeway northbound at Plymouth Road, causing some delays there as well. Your weather today, rain with a high of 68 degrees. Tonight, breezy with more rain and a low of 52. Tomorrow, showers likely and breezy, high of 54. Right now, it is raining lightly with fog and 63 degrees. I'm Leanna Ray on the Patriot, FM 101.5 and AM 1400.
I'm really excited with my association with Online Trading Academy, and I hope you will be too, because it's an approach to online trading that is, well, here's what they do. They have 40 campuses throughout the world. It's not a hotel deal where you go to a seminar at a hotel and then the people disappear. This is a campus right here in Detroit. It's in Southfield, actually. And what they do is teach techniques from professionals as to how to make money on the stock market, whether it goes up or down. Now, a wise guy once told me, he said, John, if you want to make a lot of money, find somebody who has made a lot of money, ask them how they did it, chances are they'll tell you, and then just go do what they did. And that's what these professional traders who make their money from the stock market, who contract to Online Trading Academy, do. They come in and they teach and they teach and they teach. And you'll find out more and find out more about how they do it by doing what I did. I attended a free 3-hour power trading workshop on investment and trading, and it's entirely free, where these professionals will show you bits and pieces of how they make money on the markets, whether they go up or down. I'm going to give you a phone number. Go to the next one. It'll change you. 844-250-8723. That's 844-250-8723. Or just go to the John McCulloch page on our website. Go to patriotdetroit.com. John McCulloch show's listed across the top. Hit that, and then that number will pop up along with others. 844-250-8723 for Online Trading Academy. I strongly, personally recommend it.
The John McCulloch Show is sponsored in part by AzerTech Public Adjusters.
FM 101.5, AM 1400, The Patriot. Our great guest is Chris Galbatz. He is the Vice President of UTT, Understanding the Threat. And Chris, I understand that you went to Las Vegas. First thing I'm going to ask you is, why did you go there? And then I would ask what you found when you got there after the shootings.
Yeah, so we were there partly for some meetings that we had, and then partly there was a counterterrorism conference that was being held in Las Vegas. And one of the things that we called from the Monday morning after this shooting occurred to this day, our assessment as an organization is that the Las Vegas shootings was a jihad attack. We haven't seen any evidence that has come out to put that into question yet. And what we find incredibly ironic is that the FBI has followed the same model that they followed for any other jihad attack, which is within hours before all of the evidence could have possibly been analyzed, even parts of the evidence. The FBI has come out and said that this has nothing to do with international terrorism. You can determine if an incident has ties to an international terrorist group like the Islamic State. You can determine that within a few hours. You can't rule that out within a few hours. And that's exactly what the FBI did. Then, of course, after we made our call, the Islamic State made their statement that this was one of their own jihad attacks. Now, contrary to a lot of information in social media, from our assessment, the Islamic State has never identified or claimed an attack to be their own that wasn't. And there's been analysis done on this by the New York Times, which is no friend of understanding the threats, to say the least. But there have been other reports as well that back this claim up, that the Islamic State doesn't just claim any attack under the sun. They have a track record that shows that, with very few exceptions, none of the attacks that they have claimed had any question as to whether or not they were Islamic State attacks. There have been a few attacks that they have claimed that there's not a lot of evidence out, but all indications point to a jihad attack from the Islamic State. And so our point as an organization is, if all the evidence points to this being a jihad attack, there's not even any evidence out there that points to any other source for the attack. And then the Islamic State also claimed the attack after they had called for attacks in Las Vegas on multiple occasions. A week before the attack, they had put out a notice saying that Muslims should avoid places where crusaders gather. You put all of these facts together, and from our assessment, with all the evidence that is available, there's no other assessment that we can see other than this being a jihad attack. And until more evidence comes out, we're just going to stand by that assessment. And so that's what we were doing out in Las Vegas, was having some meetings and then also going over some of that. That just happened to be a counterterrorism conference that we'd scheduled months before.
Okay, I have two more questions for you, and I'm going to let you go. One question that I've had since it started was the almost open-door policy during the Obama administration for the Muslim Brotherhood. They were in and out of that White House like flies, really. How much harm did that do to our national security? How much harm did that do to people infiltrating into the deep state? What do you have an assessment of that?
Yeah, well, I can tell you what I tell legislators, law enforcement, and citizen groups. The more you know about this threat, the more you know about the Muslim Brotherhood infiltration into our government, the worse it gets. And I can just tell you that you had mentioned this earlier, John, that this is a problem that is affected on both sides of the aisle. The Muslim Brotherhood had a seat at the table during the Bush White House. However, I will say this, under the Obama administration, the Muslim Brotherhood could not have asked for a better president than President Obama when it came to the issues of the Muslim Brotherhood. And the only person that probably would have given him a run for his money as far as being favorable to the Muslim Brotherhood would have been Hillary Clinton. And so they have driven our foreign policy. The most powerful military in the world, our foreign policy, particularly as it pertains to the Middle East and Islamic nations, has been driven here domestically by the Muslim Brotherhood. Our State Department wrote constitutions in Iraq and Afghanistan creating Islamic republics under Sharia. That was the Al-Qaeda's strategic objective that we obtained for them, because we're taking the advice of our Islamic advisors, which here in America is the Muslim Brotherhood primarily. And if people knew just how deep the penetration was, they would be absolutely outraged. Unfortunately, so few people in this country understand that the Muslim Brotherhood is a problem. I think at their gut level, they understand it's a problem. But really being able to articulate it is something that the average American isn't at a point yet, but they know something's wrong. And if the average person in this country that loves this country, the type of voter that elected President Trump into the White House, if they knew just how bad our government was penetrated by Muslim Brotherhood members, they would be outraged. And that's our hope as an organization as part of our presentation. We typically go through slides of jihadi penetration into the U.S. government here in America, and people's jaws just drop. They knew that there was a problem. They did not realize just how bad the problem is.
Last question. What is the solution? What do we do?
Yeah, so the solution, I mentioned it earlier, this is a war primarily of narratives. And so one of the biggest things that people can do to help change the nature of this war is to take the time to learn about this enemy. And we have resources on our website at understandingthethreat.com. Use those resources and help us get the message out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Help us spread the message. If this is truly a war of narratives, which it is, then we need more people on our side, people that love this country, that want to preserve this country, to get more involved. And the number one thing that people can do today is to start sharing the information that is truthful about Islam, jihad, and Sharia, and start helping us put that message out on social media.
And as social media starts shutting down the people who are trying to get this message out?
We have seen that, absolutely. And again, it goes back to this being a war of narratives, and the major corporations like Google, like Twitter, are doing everything they can to silence conservatives and to silence people that are speaking truthfully about this threat. And yet you can still get the word out. Just know that it's possible that your account could get suspended or shut down. But generally speaking, most of the time, people can at least put their messaging out there, and most of the time it's getting through. But there are times. The other thing that's really important we do as Understanding the Threat, we feel like churches and pastors and sheriffs are the two most important people group in this war. We feel like this is a war that's going to be won or lost at the local level. And so we do free church programs. So if anybody wants information, email me at chris@understandingthethreat.com and ask me to send you information over about our church program. We feel like if we had 10% of pastors in this country speaking truthfully about this threat from the pulpit, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now. Sheriffs, we have a book called Raising a Jihadi Generation on our store. Get your sheriff and any deputies that you know a copy of that book and encourage them to get the 3-day training program for law enforcement that we offer. And then for pastors, get them a copy of Raising a Jihadi Generation as well, and have them either do a viewing of one of our DVDs at a church group meeting, or just have Understanding the Threat come out. We would be glad to come out and speak to any group, church group out there. And all we ask is that our travel is covered and our lodging. But this is a war where we have to, as Americans, start speaking up. And everywhere we see Sharia adherence at any level, we need to be speaking up boldly and not allowing any encroachment of Sharia to happen anywhere in any county in the U.S. And so I just encourage people to get involved locally. You can only solve so much at the federal level, but your efforts are multiplied at the local level when you get involved in this, and that's what we're encouraging people to do.
Chris Galbetz, thank you so much for being with us tonight and being so generous with your time. We'll have all that contact information, including his email address, posted on our Facebook page, and that's facebook.com/thepatriotdetroit. He's speaking tomorrow night, Tuesday, October 24th, starting at 7, Dave and Buster's in Utica. It's hosted by the Southeast Michigan Tea Party. You do not have to be a member. All are welcome. And I would urge anyone who wants more information, who wants to meet Chris, to get out there tomorrow night to Dave and Buster's in Utica, and starting at 7, and then take it in. Chris, again, thank you for being with us. I'm sure we'll be talking again.
Well, thank you for having me on, John, and I look forward to meeting people at the event tomorrow.
I hope you have a huge turnout. And that's Chris Galbetz, and we want to thank him once again for being with us. 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. The text feature is up and working also, and I'll take texts there. We'll read as many as we can as we go through the program. And we'll take a short break and get to your phone calls here on FM 101.5 and AM 1400, The Patriot. Well, I hope you were able to hear all of that and hear all of the salient parts. One of the things that I used to do was miss a lot of presentations and so forth unless I could turn the volume up to blow other people out of the car, out of my living room. And that's when I started leaning toward getting my hearing at least looked at. And chose Cruise Hearing because it was suggested to me. It wasn't easy to get me to go, but once I went and met the people at Cruise Hearing, I am just so glad that I picked them, because I had this vision of visiting a hearing place and getting my hearing tested, and then the pounding would start. Somebody would be all over me, trying to close me into buying something that I didn't know anything about. And this kind of thing happens in some of these big places that you go to. You'll get pounded and pounded and pounded. They're going to sell you something even if you don't need it. But they don't do that at Cruise. They are information-oriented. They want you to have all the information you need to make a good decision. They're a family organization with 2 locations to serve you, downriver in Taylor and in Farmington Hills. And I use the same number for both. And I just got to tell you that making that first phone call is the most difficult thing you'll do in a while. I know it was for me, but I would urge you to do it. Here's the number, 877-456-2789. That's 877-456-CRUISE. 877-456-2789. They have my strongest personal recommendation, and I do hope you give them a call, and I also hope you remember to tell them you heard about it from John McCulloch.
Now, on-time traffic, news, and weather on the Patriot.
You'll find some road construction closing down the left lane of 696 eastbound between Woodward and 75. Traffic is stop and go from the Lodge in this area. Plan on heavy delays here. You'll find an accident blocking the right lane of 94 eastbound at Little Mac, backing things up in that area. You'll find slow traffic on 275 southbound between 696 and M14. A little slow traffic on 696 westbound between the Lodge and 96. You'll find on the Lodge northbound at Telegraph, an accident blocks the right shoulder, causing delays in that area. And you'll find slowdowns on Southfield Freeway northbound at Plymouth Road due to an accident blocking the right shoulder there as well. Your weather today, rain with a high of 68 degrees. Tonight, breezy with more rain and a low of 52. Tomorrow, showers likely and breezy, high of 54. Right now, it is raining lightly with fog and 63 degrees. From the townhall.com newsroom, a man with a concealed pistol license is being hailed for saving several lives when he shot and killed a gunman at a Sunoco gas station in Highland Park. It happened just after midnight Saturday, and police say the CPL holder shot and killed one of 2 men who walked out of a field and started shooting at 2 cars. The other gunman ran off and has not been caught. No one in the cars were hurt. The defense team for former USA Gymnastics and Michigan State University Dr. Larry Nassar is seeking to have his trial moved out of the Lansing area and delayed. In a Friday court filing, they cite the statement released last week by 2012 Olympic gold medalist Michaela Maroney, alleging Nassar sexually assaulted her, saying it will be tough to get a fair trial. Maroney announced on Twitter that Nassar started to sexually assault her when she was just 13. Around 140 women and girls have accused Nassar of sexually assaulting them. Traffic and weather updates 4 times an hour and news always online at patriotdetroit.com. I'm Leanna Ray on the Patriot, FM 101.5 and AM 1400.
Hey, Warrior fans, we invite you to join us this Saturday. Warriors return home to take on Ashland. Extended pregame coverage begins at 11:30 with the kickoff coming at noon as the Warriors take on their old rival, nationally ranked Ashland. Right here on your home for the Warriors, FM 101.5, AM 1400, The Patriot. Pregame show, 11:30. Join us.
The John McCulloch Show is brought to you in part by Online Trading Academy.
FM 101.5, AM 1400, The Patriot. Just spent a pretty chilling 40 minutes with Chris Gaubatz of the Understanding the Threat organization, who is speaking tomorrow night in Utica. I'd be interested in your evaluation of what he said. He said nothing that disagreed with anything that I've been saying all along, and anything that any thinking people are saying all along. It's just a matter of truly finding out who they say they are and find out what it is they are fighting for. They're very open about it. And Sharia law is absolutely incompatible with constitutional republic, our Constitution and our constitutional republic, and must not be allowed ever to set up shop in the United States of America. It is antithetical to our way of life and to our Constitution. And we don't allow other governments to set up in the United States. They should not be allowed to either. But I am going to take calls. 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. Here's Gorno and Novi on the Patriot. Hey, Gorno.
John, how the heck are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Well, very interesting interview. Thank you so much for presenting that. I think one of the big problems that we have in America today is if somebody calls themselves a religion, that suddenly it's hands off. I mean, look at this Scientology fella. He's literally a science fiction writer. He makes up this religion, and suddenly, because they say the word religion, he's given credibility. The same thing happens with Muslims, in my opinion. Muslims are not actually a religion. It's part of religion, but it's also a political system, and I think we should start calling it a political system, and maybe people will take a little more realistic picture of it. But as far as I can see, when they call it a religion, people go, oh, you can't say anything bad about a religion, and this is what we've got today. That's what I think, John.
Well, I appreciate your opinion. Thanks.
You, buddy.
Thank you very much for the call. See if we get another quick one in here for another break. Here's Tom in Sterling Heights on the Patriot. Hey, Tom.
Thanks so much, John. You're doing a phenomenal job. You and the Patriot, unbelievable guest. I couldn't help but think, and I'd like to point out that there's growing support, and someone's putting out a vetting questionnaire for candidates running for office on what they know on this very subject, the Constitution versus Sharia law. We've got to start getting candidates into office that understand the threat. There's questions on there about refugee resettlement and unvetted refugees. It's a good questionnaire, and if I might point out, it's on the SecureMichigan.org website. I'd like to urge everybody to start using that to vet their candidates on what they know on this topic.
And you know something else? Secure Michigan just came out with the most blindingly bright endorsement they could have gotten coast to coast or internationally. Did you know that?
Yes, I am aware of these efforts, and I'm so glad.
Let me tell you what it is. The Southern Poverty Law Center has now branded Secure Michigan a terrorist organization. I'm joining tomorrow.
Right. It's a joke, and all of that's being rebuffed. And in fact, the Department of Defense and other federal agencies have now gotten rid of the Southern Poverty Law Center as a resource. So they're on their way out. And let me point out, you can go to a website, splcexposed.com, and that'll put an end to them.
Tom, I appreciate your call. Thanks very much for joining us. You know, it's pretty interesting how intimidated that people get. You know, normally you see the lines light up like crazy on this show. It's amazing, and I love it, and I thank you for the support. But this subject is intimidating, and I think that deep down inside, people are reluctant, if not even slightly afraid, to talk about this. And we can't be, folks, because the jihad is on. They want to take us over. And I'm not saying that it's everybody. I'm not trying to start trouble. I'm simply saying that you've got to understand who they say they are and why they are fighting us. And when you understand that, then you'll get it. It's unfortunate, but it's very, very true. 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. This is the John McCulloch Show, and this is FM 101.5 and AM 1400, The Patriot. Dr. Richard Klein is a specially educated neuromuscular dentist with over 30 years' experience managing TMJ disorders and sleep apnea disorders at the Michigan Head and Neck Institute. He's been doing it there for a long time. He is considered an expert on it he's the go-to guy. People in medical school here in Southeast Michigan, he teaches in medical school. He lectures all over the country to medical organizations of MDs. He just got back from one in San Francisco. But the neat thing is we have him here in Warren, and his main interest, and the interest that he would never slight in order to do some of this other stuff he does, is his patients, the people who come to him for help when they've tried so many other ways and they just can't find them. And one of the ways to find out about TMJ and sleep apnea, and 80% of the people who have it don't even know they have it. Now, that doesn't mean 80% of the people have it. I'm saying 80% of the people who have obstructive sleep apnea don't know it. And you can find out some of the symptoms, all of the symptoms that we know about of obstructive sleep apnea and TMJ at tmjmichigan.com. That's tmjmichigan.com. If you see symptoms there that match symptoms that you have, all the information to contact Dr. Klein is right there at tmjmichigan.com for the Michigan Head and Neck Institute. Please remember to keep right on telling them that John McCulloch sent you.
Now, on-time traffic and weather on the Patriot.
Watch out for an accident blocking 3 lanes of traffic on 696 eastbound before Greenfield Road. Traffic is stop and go from Evergreen Road as a result, and traffic is getting by on the right lane only. Expect heavy delays in this area. You'll find road construction closing down the left lane of 696 eastbound between Woodward and 75. Traffic is stop and go from Coolidge in this area. Plan on heavy delays as well. You'll find 696 westbound after Greenfield Road has an accident blocking the 2 left lanes. Traffic is stop and go from Coolidge here with emergency crews on scene. You'll find the right lane blocked on 94 eastbound at Little Mac due to an accident. Traffic is stop and go from 696. An accident blocks the right shoulder of 275 northbound at 8 Mile. And we have good news that earlier accident on Southfield Freeway northbound at Plymouth Road has cleared from the right shoulder, but traffic is still slow in this area. Your weather today: rain with a high of 68. Tonight, breezy with more rain and a low of 52. Tomorrow, showers likely and breezy, high of 54. Right now, it is raining lightly and 63 degrees. I'm Leanna Ray on the Patriot, FM 101.5 and AM 1400.
One of the biggest problems for the conservative future, millennials just seem to love socialism. What do we do about it? We'll talk about that with Ben Stein next time on the Michael Medved Show. And a number of cities across the country are trying to discourage citizens from giving money to panhandlers. Is that appropriate or just cruel? We'll talk about it Monday on the Medved Show.
Michael Medved, weekday evenings at 7 on the Patriot. The John McCulloch Show is brought to you in part by Cruz Hearing Aid Services.
Here's Ken in Livonia on the Patriot. Hey, Ken.
Well, John, great show as usual. And I have to say, I want to address quickly the subject of moderate.
Ken, I'm really sorry. You're. I don't know what's the matter with your phone, but it's unintelligible, and I can't use it. But thank you for the call. Rob in Livonia, you're next on the Patriot. Go ahead.
Hi, John. Thanks for having Chris on tonight. I want to add one thing, do you know who Paul Malin is?
Sure.
Have you seen his documentary called Hydra?
No.
I will send you my copy. He did a documentary on the Hydra, the cultural jihad, which is part of all this whole thing. And I've heard recently someone point out that, 20 years ago, I don't think I ever saw a woman with a hijab on. But how many do you see now? And the comment was made, again, this is from, actually, I think it might have been from John Guandolo, that this is a sign of where they believe they are in the Hydra.
Send it to me, Bob. I'll wait for it with a great deal of interest.
Thank you.
All right. Have yourself a great night. Tom in Detroit, I've got 40 seconds for you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I studied Quran a little bit, read it, and, these religion, and, this applies to Muslim religion, Muhammad took his teachings from rabbis, and all religions have men put their own work into it. It's like rat poison. It's 95% of the rat poison is stuff that's good for the rat. It's good rat food. That's 5% that they slip in there that, where it gets past people. And then in the Muslim religion, where they're not even allowed to question it.
Right, and that's part of the problem.
Fall is here, and so are the great deals at LuLaRich Chevrolet. Lease a Trax LS for as low as $109 a month. A Cruise LT starting at $139 a month. Malibu LTs for just $149 a month. Plus, the all-new 2018 Equinoxes are here and start at only $185 a month. Leases are for 24 months, 10,000 miles per year with GM employee or family member discount with a qualifying lease in the household. Includes dealer cash while supplies last. $999 down plus taxes, license, dock fees, and first payment due at signing. Offer ends October 31st. Chevy Trax for as low as $109 a month. Cruises for $139 a month. Malibu's only $149 a month. And the 2018 Equinox is as low as $185 a month. We dig deep to find all the rebates and incentives you qualify for, giving you the very best deal possible. And we always have a great selection of pre-owned GM certified vehicles. LuLaRich Chevrolet, located at the corner of Plymouth and Haggerty Roads in Plymouth. For details, call 877-55-CHEVY. Save money when you make the switch to LuLaRich Chevrolet. Find new roads.
MyPillow.com, promo code WDTK. You'll get 2 MyPillows for the price of 1. That's MyPillow.com, promo code WDTK. You know you want one, so why not get it at a time when the price is great? 2 MyPillows for the price of 1 with the promo code WDTK, and you too can start sleeping the way nature intended.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Promo code WDTK. Here's Ross in Canada. Ross, good evening.
Hey, good evening, John. Hey, I'm excited about your guest there. He's doing some awesome work. I mean, we're having a serious issue here in Canada, as you may know. We have, people in government. We have more people coming in government with similar Islamic beliefs, and we have a wide open border. And I like the work that he's doing because it's gonna wake a lot of people up, and then they'll be able to take a closer look so that they can really see it. All of this is done as far as I'm concerned. It's done by design. That was the whole idea. I think I mentioned a book to you back a little while ago called "The Fire in the Minds of Men."
Yes,
James Billington, and in that book it explains how Islam would be raised up in the Western Hemisphere to basically fight against the Christians was the original idea. But I think we're seeing that happen. Like they're just kind of working their way in with the help of the social engineers, and we have to wake up and keep praying for President Trump, and hopefully the bright light that's happening over there right now where you guys are will be shining over here, and we'll see some cockroaches heading for the corners.
Thanks for the call, Ross. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Have yourself a great evening. Thanks to Jason Fissler for doing the studio technical duties this evening. This program is produced by Steve Dealey. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for calling. Thank you for texting. And thank you for watching. Not all of us who are trying to get the word out are Islamophobic nuts. Keep that in mind. We couldn't be. I'm John McCulloch. Have as good a night as you can.
The John McCulloch Show is sponsored in part by Dr. Richard Klein of Michigan Head and Neck, Greg Chiropractic Life Center, Azer Tech Public Adjusters, Cruise Hearing Aid Centers, and Online Trading Academy. The John McCulloch Show on the new FM 101.5 and AM 1400.
You can't handle the truth.
The Patriot.